Before talking about the 2025 remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, it really helps to go back to where their franchise began, because context really matters here more than usual. The original 1984 film did not just arrive as another holiday-themed slasher, it arrived swinging. It pushed ideas that were deeply uncomfortable for audiences at the time, and dealing openly with PTSD, child endangerment, sexual exploitation, and graphic violence in ways that felt confrontational rather than playful. This was not subtext, it was right there on the surface, and the backlash was immediate. Protests formed, critics like Gene Siskel spoke out loudly against it, and parents were furious. And yet, despite all of that, the movie refused to disappear. Instead, it became infamous. And that infamy has a strange way of keeping things alive. What followed was a franchise that never quite knew what it wanted to be. Then the first sequel stayed somewhat connected to the original, but even then, it felt like it was already trying to outrun its own shadow. The series became another straight-to-video casualty, chasing whatever genre trend happened to be selling tapes at the time, instead of building on its own mythology. And then Stephen C. Miller's Silent Night was a noticeable attempt to pull things back towards something grounded. By focusing on a serial killer framework, it stripped away the excess and tried to find a cleaner path forward. I think that film works in a lot of ways, but even then, it felt like a detour rather than a true revival. It was adjacent to the franchise rather than a continuation of its complicated legacy. And so when I walked into the 2025 remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, my expectations were low. Very low. I was not excited. I was not hopeful. And for the first 30 minutes, those expectations felt completely justified. I was frustrated. I was disconnected, and I found myself rolling my eyes more than once and genuinely asking why I was there. The tone felt scattered. The ideas felt clashing. It felt like the movie did not know what it wanted to be, and I was convinced it was going to collapse under the weight of its own ambition. And then something unexpected happened. Slowly, almost reluctantly, I started to give in to what the film was doing. It did not suddenly become refined. It did not smooth out its rough edges. Instead, it leaned into them. The movie committed fully to its chaos and stopped apologizing for it. And somewhere in that commitment, it found its footing. And by the time the credits rolled, I realized I had gone through a complete shift. I walked out engaged, entertained, and genuinely surprised by how much the movie had won me over. That kind of turnaround is rare for me, especially when a film loses me early. This remake throws a lot of ideas into the mix, and it does so without hesitation. It is paying homage to the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, but it is also very clearly pulling from a wide range of influences. At times, it feels like a collision of genres rather than a single focused tone. There are moments like the Echo comic book anti-hero energy. There are stretches that feel pulled straight from the revenge cinema, and there is a confidence in how the film leans into its excess that feels almost Tarantino-inspired, not in imitation, but in attitude. And somehow, surprisingly, it works more often than it does not. This is not a remake that tries to recreate the exploitation aspects of the original, and that's an important distinction. Instead, it pulls back from that territory while still embracing the brutality. The violence here feels intentional rather than provocative. It is not trying to shock for the sake of shock, it is trying to serve the story it is telling. And the characters are recognizable archetypes. The villains are clearly defined, the moral lines are obvious, and the story itself is built on familiar ground. You can predict where this is all heading early on, and I certainly did, and I did not care. What mattered was the sincerity behind it. This movie believes in what it's doing. It is not cynical. It is not embarrassed by its influences. It wears its love for the franchise openly while still trying to push forward with something new. The balance is difficult to pull off, and even when the film stumbles, it never feels disingenuous. It feels like a movie made by people who genuinely wanted to take a swing rather than play it safe. This is absolutely not a movie for everyone, and I can easily see mainstream audiences rejecting it outright. I can also see horror fans splitting hard on it. Some will appreciate the boldness, others will be irritated by the messiness. It took me time to settle into its rhythm, and I was convinced early on that I was not going to like this intensely. But by the end, I was all in. There were very few films where I start completely disconnected and then end up fully engaged. That alone makes this remake interesting. And whether it lands as a guilty pleasure or something more substantial probably depends on your tolerance for bold swings and unapologetic mashups. And for me, it landed somewhere in between. It's not perfect, it's not refined, but it's memorable. And maybe that is the most surprising part of it all. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025 will likely end up being one of the more divisive horror releases of the year. I do not expect universal praise and I do not expect consensus, but what I do expect is a conversation. And my experience with it shifted so dramatically that I cannot stop thinking about how different it felt by the end compared to the beginning. And I did not expect to enjoy it, and I did not expect to care. And now this could be my new guilty pleasure. Now the big question is it your kind of chaos? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for going on this film journey with me. And as always, be real.
Is always watching. Naughty boys get punished.